1. To preface, the event I'm going to describe went down in May of this year. I am a 26-year-old female, and several months prior, my girlfriend ended our relationship. We lived together, and after the split I spent about 2 months living with my mom, while my ex stayed at the apartment and found a place within her budget. It had been decided that once she moved out, I would take over the apartment. I live in a big city, with already expensive rent that's continuing to skyrocket. She has some legal fees that impacted what she could afford monthly, so finding something suitable in a decentish neighborhood took some time. The apartment we lived in was upstairs. There were 4 units on top and 4 on the bottom. All units were occupied. The neighbor directly underneath my apartment had very peculiar habits. At the same time every day he would turn on his playlist and play his harmonica. It seemed he only had one playlist of about 20 songs because he would play the same songs every day. It was annoying at first, but I grew to enjoy and even find comfort in his peculiar habits. I gave him the nickname of Harmonica Homie. He hardly ever left his apartment, nor did he have company over. The guy was really nice, kind of odd but a sweet soul. This will be relevant later. I moved back in my apartment in the beginning of May, ready to tackle this whole adulting thing. I began a new relationship with a close friend and things were looking promising. I was really happy, and super excited to have a place all to myself. It was a Friday, and I went grocery shopping after work to buy things for the dinner I was going to make for my new girlfriend. I began walking from my car to my apartment, when I noticed a sketchy-looking African-American male on a bike. He is standing at the base of the stairs I need to take to get to my apartment, and he is leaning over the patio of Harmonica Homie's apartment, visibly speaking with someone. I thought Harmonica Homie made a new friend, and really thought nothing of it. I made my way over, and as the gentleman on the bike was blocking my way, politely asked him to move. He began hitting on me and saying some mild comments. I ignored him for obvious reasons. Crackheads and dudes aren't really my type, let alone the combination of the two. So I unlocked my door and locked it behind me. Where I live, the weather was still nice in May, so I would open my windows and patio door to let the breeze in and cool my apartment without having to use the AC. Adulting 101, save money when you can. I opened the window from my kitchen, and the way it was situated is you have a clear view of the ground below. Guess who I see when I open my window? Homie on the bike. He was looking directly up at me, and turned to the side and began speaking with someone while still managing to not break eye contact. I'm not one to startle easily. This will become apparent later. But this made me feel uneasy, so I closed all the windows and blinds. I start making dinner and my girlfriend comes over. We enjoy our evening and I tell her about the creepy dude that was trying to holler. She thought it was weird as fuck, but we didn't think too much of it at the time. Around 10 p.m. we decide to watch a movie in my living room, which is where my front door is located. Around 10:30 p.m. there's a knock on my door. We both look at each other confused, and she asks if I'm expecting anyone. I tell her obviously not, and she looks in the peephole and tells me some cracked-out looking white guy is knocking at my door. He knocks a couple more times and leaves. My girlfriend was watching him the whole time, and he was only knocking on my door. Weird, but whatever. We put the incident aside, resume the movie, and continue our evening. Saturday rolls around and I tell my apartment complex about Creepy Dude 1 and 2. And I'm given the number to security and told to call if there's an issue. I leave to go to my friend's graduation and come back around 9:30 p.m. My mom is with me and notices my back patio door is completely unlocked. Of course, I get the lecture of a lifetime. But I swear up and down I remember locking it, as I'm in the habit of always double-checking to make sure everything is locked. My girlfriend comes over to stay the night again, and my mom leaves. Around 12 a.m., girlfriend and I decide to go to bed, when we hear this loud noise coming from outside. She is immediately startled, and I tell her it's nothing, that my complex is huge and loud, and to go back to bed. Well, I was wrong, because the noise from outside is even louder, and there is some banging and crashing happening. We look out my bedroom window and see the screen from the downstairs unit is on the ground and smashed up. We put 2 and 2 together, and realize someone is trying to break into Harmonica Homie's apartment. I call security and they tell me they'll dispatch someone shortly. We have moved to my living room at this point, and not 3 minutes after I hang up with security, my girlfriend hears someone gently knocking on my door. She looks through the peephole and lo and behold, it's the cracked out white dude from the night before. She sees him knocking lightly again, and then he begins jiggling my door handle. My girlfriend then says she heard him communicate with someone down below and says, "It looks like her door is locked." I call security again and tell them that someone is trying to actively break into my apartment and that they need to send someone now. Security gets there in less than 2 minutes and detains the guy. Around 12:45 a.m., I get another knock on my door and see that it is security, and that they have the guy in cuffs. I feel safe opening my door, and security asks me if I know the gentleman in handcuffs. I say I do not, and security said he thought so, but the guy said he knew me and who I was, and that he wanted to see me and was confused as to why I wasn't letting him in. I went off on the guy, told him to never go near me again, that he's creepy and disgusting and should be ashamed of himself. The sheriff's department came and it was discovered that he and several other men had been illegally squatting in the unit underneath me. He was served with a no trespass order and I was able to get his name from the reports done that evening. Some public record searches showed that he has quite the rap sheet from several states, including robbery and several drug charges. I have since moved. So creepy squatter dudes, let's not meet. Edit. I don't think I did a good job explaining what happened to Harmonica Homie in my post. He moved out either while I was gone or shortly after I came back. That's why the squatters were able to stay there, the unit was empty. 2. A few months back, my girlfriend and I were bored hanging around the house, and spontaneously decided to go out for a hike. We don't go hiking often, but the idea appealed to both of us, and even though there was only about an hour left of light, we figured we had enough time to go enjoy a hike before it got too dark. We fill up our water bottles, put on the best walking shoes we had, and we were out the door driving up into the mountains. Around my area there are many hiking trails, with the variety of trails increasing as you go up into the mountains. We tended to stay around the base of the mountains, in the occasional case of us hiking, where most people would still be walking. But we wanted to change things up and progressed further up the mountain road to a trail a friend of mine had mentioned. We kept in mind our time and figured that we could hike for a bit and simply enjoy the new environment for us, and finish up before it was too late. We arrived at the trailhead and see that there were no cars left along the road where the trail commences, but didn't think too much of it due to the time. We still had a good 45 minutes until dark, so we continued on. We start walking down a fairly steep hill that then recoups the elevation at the bottom, with an equally steep hill that you have to ascend. We reach the top, and then it's smooth sailing from there. We see a lone coyote off of the trail a ways off, and some rabbits. I made a quip about how those rabbits might need to be careful with that coyote lurking around. She playfully hit me for that one. Approximately less than a mile into the trail, we see a large fallen tree that made a bridge over a dried riverbed, and decided to take a rest, climb around on it, and take pictures. We were there for about 10 minutes, and then resume hiking. We continue on the trail for a short distance, until she hears a rustle in the trees behind us. We stop, mildly spooked, due to the assumed size of whatever made that rustling, but continue on only briefly before she decides she's done, and that we need to head back. It's twilight now, so I agree with her, and we turn around and head back to the car. When we made it back to the fallen tree, my shoe had come untied, so I used the trunk to fix my loose laces, and looked behind us for the first time on the hike. Uncharacteristic for me, but hey, I was having fun, why be paranoid? I see a person dressed entirely in black with their hood on. That was a significant distance behind us, walking at a slow, even pace. It wasn't something out of the ordinary, so what if they're wearing black with their hood on? I wear black most of the time, and it's cold out. I shouldn't make assumptions. This does trigger me to be more alert, however. and I inform my girlfriend of this person's presence. It's now dusk. We continue on at an intentionally faster pace and go through a winding section of the trail, and I lose sight of the person. When we come around the final bend of the section, I figure they're far behind us and that there's nothing to worry about. Sooner than later, the person is behind us again, but much closer. Probably 50 feet in comparison to 100 feet before, and we had increased our speed, so this alarmed us. We briskly walk around another bend, and as soon as we come around it, we book it. It seemed to be a natural reaction on both of our parts, as we just started running without a word said to initiate it. We are nearing the trailhead now, with only the hills to deal with. We catch our breaths for a moment, and I turn around again. I saw the person seemingly halt a sprint upon noticing me looking back, as if they were trying to uphold the illusion of simply walking. At this point I shout, "Go!" and we sprint down the hill. What little light was left struggled to make its way through the dense trees surrounding us, and the steep hill proved challenging to run down without a clear path to be seen. We both stumbled down the hill, almost falling multiple times and slamming our feet onto rocks and loose brush. But we didn't fall and we didn't look behind us. We make it to the bottom. We must continue up the initial hill, and then we will have made it out. We persevere up the incline and make it back to our car. I finally breathe in relief as I start my car, heart pounding and adrenaline racing. As I reverse onto the road, the person emerges at the trailhead, apparently breathing heavily. We finally get a glimpse of him. His hood had fallen off of his head, exposing his pale complexion and dead eyes that were only illuminated by a single lantern at the start of the trail. He was holding something in his hand, but it was too dark to see, and I was not interested in sticking around to make out the object. I shift into drive and accelerate as fast as my car could muster, leaving him behind in the dust of the empty side of the road. 3. I'll start with some context. I live in Michigan. I won't specify what city, but it's incredibly safe. I mean, there's absolutely no crime besides domestic disputes and occasional stealing. Pretty close to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. I suppose it's for this reason that my friend and I were targeted. Down the street from my house, there's a semi-large dog park. It's got a playground, some trails, and a big parking lot. In the day, it's used by plenty of people. It's an open area with housing all around it. All the streets next to it are filled with different associations, including mine that's barely a mile away. At night, the park is filled with a different crowd. Since it's safe and open, lots of people go to have sex in their cars and not be disturbed, or smoke pot. My friend and I stopped in for the latter, parked our car in the middle of a row a few spaces away from other cars, rolled the windows down a bit and started chatting and smoking. Same thing we've done plenty of times. The parking lot is like a huge oval. Once you're in, you have to go all the way around to exit. My friend Morgan parked facing the entrance on the opposite side, with the divider in the center. If we smelled bacon, we could leave if need be. You never know, but enough context, I digress. Morgan and I had been sitting for only about 10 minutes. A few cars passed through each time we watched carefully, wanting to always be aware of who was around us, and probably a small bit of paranoia. We kept a close eye until we saw no threat. Eventually, a large, bright yellow truck pulled in. Now, when I say large, I mean you'd have to hoist yourself into this thing. It was hard to miss. The windows were tinted, making it impossible to see into the cab. The driver pulled around the parking lot and went right for the exit. Not horribly slow and not rushing out, like he was just turning around. Morgan and I made a few snide comments about his choice in color and moved on. No big deal, right? We sat for another 15 minutes, had a deep and meaningful talk, smoked some more weed, then saw it was almost midnight. Obviously, it was time to go home. Morgan began to pull out of the park, looked both ways down the main street, and so did I. But something piqued my interest right away. The same yellow truck was driving by in the same direction we were headed. A little bit about me. I have severe anxiety, always have and probably always will, so I'm usually nervous about usual things. I've had issues in the past that caused me to be extra paranoid. I'll get nervous if I see someone twice in a grocery store. So my reaction to the truck was typical. It being so noticeable, I told myself I was being silly, getting anxiety. Just because I noticed it didn't mean danger. I didn't say anything and we continued home. My neighborhood is set up kinda strangely. Let me explain so this makes a bit of sense. There's a long winding road down the center. It's a straight shot to the very end of the houses. But off to the sides of the main road are small pods of houses, like cul-de-sacs. Mine is the second to last. Arriving at my house, Morgan and I started our goodbyes, when we were both stopped in the middle of the conversation. We sat silent as the same yellow truck drove past the exit of my circle, into the last circle off the main road. Morgan said to me, "That's the same truck from before, right?" I responded, "Yeah, they drove by us leaving the park too." We watched the entrance. There's no other exit from there. One entrance, one exit. So in a moment he was driving past again on the main road. I was freaking out. Why the fuck was this guy here? There's never been this truck here, it's too obvious to miss. It couldn't possibly be a coincidence. I started begging Morgan to come inside, telling her to just wait a few minutes, make sure he leaves and doesn't follow her home. She tried brushing me off, saying it was fine and there's no way he was following us. As we sat and argued in her car, the truck pulled into the first entrance of my circle, one in front of us and one behind. He automatically pulled into a spot and turned the car off. My anxiety was screaming to run. There's no way this person wasn't following us. Morgan screamed, "Fuck this, get inside!" We shot out of the car. I dug through my purse, fumbling to get my keys, begging any god or demon that would listen to let my key work and get us inside. Now I don't live alone. My younger sister lives with me and my grandparents were visiting. They would be right inside. The only thing I could think about was the fact that my hard-ass West Virginia redneck grandfather was sitting downstairs with his rifle next to his chair, and he would know what to do. With Morgan right behind me, I flung the door open on the first twist of my key, thank fuck, and we ran in, slamming the door behind us. Shaking violently, I scrambled down to where my grandfather was, screaming his name out of panic. He jumped up and started calming me and Morgan. After telling him what happened, we began to realize how stupid we must have sounded. He said we were probably paranoid from the weed. We calmed down, and my grandfather said he would check it out. He just needed Morgan to move her car from the front door. We agreed to go out and park it together. Buddy system for life. We tried to laugh everything off, seeing how silly we must have sounded running through the door like that. All sense of comfort was lost as soon as Morgan walked down my front steps. She gasped, and turned around so fast I barely had time to react. She screamed, "He's right there!" Apparently when she looked around the corner, the truck was driving directly towards us and the car, barely a few feet away. We clambered inside, and as I closed the door, I saw the truck peel off past my door. We ran back into the house and into the kitchen, which looks into the circle where my family was staring out the windows. They watched the truck pull around the main road back by my house, over and over. It felt like being stalked in my own home. I felt like I was going to puke. I could barely keep from crying. Once again, the truck pulled out and my grandfather wanted to take action. With gun in hand, he got ready to leave. He asked if I wanted to go along. I felt compelled to find out what this creep's problem was. We hopped in his car and pulled out to the main road. As soon as we pulled out, we saw the truck pull out of another circle. I started to flip. I kept yelling, "That's him!" My grandpa told me to calm down and pay attention. The truck hadn't seen this car and didn't know it was us. We watched as he pulled around again into our circle past my house, and then to the exit. The same exit our car was approaching. My stomach was in my throat. My shaking got worse as we began to drive towards him. Just as the truck tried to pass next to us, My grandfather pulled the front of his car directly in front of the truck, flashing his high beams into the cab. There was an older man driving the truck. He had wire-rimmed glasses, balding head, and a white t-shirt. You couldn't get more ordinary. I saw him yell, "Oh shit!" before reversing and doing a full 180 towards the other exit of the circle back to the main road. My grandfather wanted this guy to get the hell out of Dodge. He slammed on the gas and sped right behind this dude. Navigating through the winding road at 80 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour zone was nothing short of a heart attack. We chased him out of my complex and down the street. Unfortunately, other cars got in the way and he sped off on the highway. I kept my shit together until we finally turned around to go home after trying to look for the truck. I broke down and started crying. The man I saw seriously resembled my estranged, abusive father, who was supposed to be states away. I asked my grandfather if he saw what I saw, and in return he simply rubbed my back and told me it would be okay. Returning home, we told the rest of the family what happened. They'd seen us pull away and chase the car, but there's not much visibility from my porch. We called the police and made a report. When first asked our address, the operator responded, "Are you sure? You guys don't get crime out there?" Gave me a good laugh. Nothing came from the report. No one reported a truck in the area doing anything, and we never got a license plate. No explanation as to who or what this person wanted. As a sort of side note, my sister and I had a weird moment before everything. She told me once everything calmed down that right before I burst into the door, she had a feeling something was off. She was thinking to herself, "I wonder if she's okay." Maybe just intuition, but I like to think it was more. Anyways, creepy bald dude who likes to stalk pretty young girls, you'd better hope we don't meet again. My grandfather is waiting. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 308. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Just going to keep this outro short and sweet. I tend to record these on the weekend before the Monday, so I just want to thank everybody for all the comments and feedback you've been leaving on the videos lately, and helping the channel continue to grow. I really appreciate it, and fingers and toes crossed, maybe I might hit that 50,000 within the next few months, but we'll see. Every new subscriber is welcome, how many or how few there might be. Okay, and with that I think I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.